Silence for me would mean that this room is filled with people who don't have experience with data and AI security and have not used any technology, and that's okay. Again, it helps me understand how to manage or how to my simplify the explanations I'm giving. Okay, so I didn't get any response. It means that the 21 people on this call have not had any experience with data and AI security and have not used any technology. That's fine. If you're watching this recording, um, this is the Microsoft Cloud Security Identity Data and AI curated program for Techstylers Deep Dive. We are on day 5, which is week 5 of our um, Techstylers Tech Deep Dive program that we organize every year. Um, for the last 4 weeks, we've been learning identity and identity security and access management. And so the next 2 weeks, we would use it, or 3 weeks, we'll use it to look at data and AI security. This particular data and AI security is created out of the Microsoft Information Security Administrator, which is under SC 400. It used to be SC 400, but I think it was in March, if I'm not mistaken. So I stand corrected, please. Microsoft released the beta version of SC 401, and I think it's now out of beta version and up. So SC401 is replacing SC400, and Microsoft calls it Information Protection Administrator. So the identity program we learned is created from Identity Access Management, which is SC300, and this one is created from SC400. Like we said, if we had to teach the whole package, the 8 weeks will not be enough to really give the kind of value we want. I just don't want people to just come for trainings and do click, click, click. And you all agree with me that these 3 weeks, well, based on my own, we're going to get your feedback. I feel like we've introduced something that you didn't have before, you didn't know before. And so it's not just by listening to us speak our mumbo jumbo, it's you now have an idea of the kind of things that we do as cybersecurity professionals using Microsoft technology in the workplace. And it's going to guide you as you keep upskilling yourself for jobs. Once again, my name is Joy Medom. I am a cybersecurity professional with over 12 years experience in technology. And I am the co-founder of Mama Cyber Shield, a community focused on stay-at-home moms to empower them with cybersecurity knowledge. I am also an AI governor for the Global Council of Responsible AI. I released 2 books earlier this year. One is a free workbook for how to break into cybersecurity. Another one is focused on parents, cybersecurity terms to keep a conversation of parents and children for online. I like to speak and I've spoken on several platforms. Um, and I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and I love what I do. I love the job that I do. And I believe that the only thing that can stop anybody is you. When you doubt or not believe in yourself, then that's when you can't achieve that whole dream and aim. So thank you for joining us. I'm a mentor in Techstylers. I used to be the head of communications and medias till I stepped down this year to focus more on strategic leadership in the community and give room also for other people to serve in that capacity. Um, I mentor across different organizations, different platforms, CyberSafe, She Secures, Textilers, um, Women in Tech, and my passion and dream is to see lots of people join us in this workforce. I believe that, and it's not just I believe. Statistics shows that there are lots of cybersecurity um, opportunities, right? And the continuous use of technology and dependence on technology is creating the need for cybersecurity professionals. My belief now is that the journey doesn't have to be as difficult as sometimes the technology makes it to be. So I believe that for those of us who have started ahead, the responsibility is on us to see how to make this journey much easier for those who are interested and who want to join us. Once again, welcome to Textilers. We do this every year. So if you're enjoying what you have watched We have lots of videos over the years that you can use to also catch up, and you can refer to people who can start to watch these videos before they get to join in the next year's session. Um, all right, so we're going to be looking at information security, information protection, data security. Now, Nabila, I can see your hands up. Yes.
Oh, good afternoon. Sorry, I was just trying to respond to the. I think you asked something about if we have any experience with data security, data and AI
Awesome. All
security.
right. So which experience do you
Yes,
have?
I'm
Which technology
sorry.
have you?
I think
Yes.
I would. I mean, I haven't really. I don't have, apart from the training I'm getting here. I don't really have technical knowledge in data security. But I'm sure, like for me, I would use examples of day-to-day things that I do that protect my own data, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like how I have email filters for spam email. I think that's something that I do. I create filters so that anyone that is a spam email or something, I put on those filters so that I don't, all my anything that is like a phishing email, I don't get it. And then another way to protect my data, I use MFAs on all for all my um what do you call it, for most of my security accounts I have to log into. So I have passwords, but I also use my fingerprints as well. I think that counts as another way that I protect my data. And yeah, and then also because I have a daughter and she's on the internet, sometimes even if for whether it's for playing, I know things like Roblox as well. I have like um media, is it moderation? You can moderate it like on her tablet. I have this thing where it has to go through me, most of her info, if she logs on any site, or sometimes these ads just come up. So I have blocks for some of those ads so that they don't actually show up. I think for me that's my own personal experience, aside the technicalities of what I'll learn, here today. So that's my contribution.
Awesome. Thank you so much for chipping in that. I have a book that, by the grace of God, should be out tomorrow on Monday or next tomorrow. I call it the Healthy Parental Guide to Online Child Safety, Volume 1. I'm going to be releasing series of volumes, and the whole idea of that is to educate parents on how we can keep our children safe online. And one of the things that I referenced in that book was how lots of parents tell their kids to not talk to strangers. However, half of all the friends your kids have online are all strangers, people you don't know, and they're engaging in them. And so, how you can have a healthy, so rather than call it parental control, when the world now Gen Zs and Gen Alphas and they're very sensitive, so we don't call it parental control against parental guide, parental support on how they can use the internet safely. So, yes, when it comes to data, remember everything anybody's trying to do is to get access to your data. It's just that in the corporate world, because the workload will seem too much, we tend to separate it, right, and say email security. So when Nabila gave us the example of the email filtering that she does, right, we will tag that as email security, even though what we're protecting is the data that whoever would get access to you is trying to get. So if you click on a phishing email, for example, and it compromises your system or compromises your laptop or compromises your account, what the person behind that phishing email is trying to achieve is get access to your data, right? And then she gave us example of putting multi-factor authentication across different platforms that she has. We will call that identity security, right? But the truth is, whoever gets access to your account and can log in with your details is actually trying to land somewhere, which is get access to your data, okay? And again, she talked about her kids, protecting her children. Whoever gets access to your children, whoever is able to penetrate them, groom them, is trying to get access to data, right? Whether the data is the kids themselves, the information that they give out, or data is you that they use them to access. So, using this example that she has given us, you will see that at the end of the day, every type of security platform, right, or work stream or career path that you take, the end goal is data, which is where the end goal, what anybody's trying to do or take away or access is data, which is why it's very important, right? And why we understand how to protect data. We've understood how to use identity. We understand the importance, of identity security, we spent extensive time understanding the different types of identities that have to engage or interact in the corporate environment, external, internal, privilege. Now we want to look at the main thing that every hacker comes to access in your environment. Every cyber threat is targeting one thing, your data. And if you look at the internet today, the concept of the internet is creation of data, right? So when you come online and you are excited with whatever you're watching, or you are irritated with whatever you're watching or reading online, what is irritating you or what is exciting you is an information, right? It's data. So it's the same way when a hacker comes, it's the data that they access that is the value of that attack. The attack is not just to prove and say that they were able to come into your environment. The attack is successful based off the amount of data that they were able to take out during that interaction with your environment, right? So we'll be looking at how Microsoft uses what we call the Microsoft Purview. Purview. Apologies, I didn't put a slide for that. But we're looking at how Microsoft Purview interacts with your data and helps you secure your data. So we understand data in this digital world, the importance from a governance perspective, and then the sequence at which we need to be able to understand this data that we interact with for us to be able to protect and manage this data. So remember in the identity space, we talked about that there are different types of identity providers. Remember, we talked of Ping, Okta, and I said that, hey, you can go and start learning those ones too. But our focus here was on Microsoft Entra ID, which is an identity provider under Microsoft. So it's the same thing. So we have the likes of what am I blank? Symantec, there are lots of other data protection. We have McAfee, who is now Trellix, a couple of other data protection technologies, right, that exist out there. But we're looking at Microsoft Purview and how it helps organizations to protect sensitive data in a digital world. There's this growing need for data protection now, and I've explained it. Continuous, because of the amount of data that is generated, the need to protect this data is important. Back in the days, parents didn't really understand that there was any risk to their children using the internet. Now, because of the demand on the use of the internet, it's become important to protect our children. It's the same thing because of the demand and the use of you and I on the internet and the resources. It's become very important for us to protect our data. The amount of information that goes out, the amount of data that falls into the hand of people is what determines, is what helps, or is what shows the level of exposure. Guys, just give me 1 minute, please. All right. So if your phone, for example, was stolen today, right? If your phone was stolen, um, as much as I know that the cost of this phone would hurt you, right? Especially if you're in countries where, in fact, inflation is everywhere. So I won't say in countries. If my phone was stolen today, yeah, it would really impact my financial pocket because there's no budget to replace my phone. But the major thing that would be my reaction to if my phone was stolen today is what? Or for you? For me, it's my data. I don't know for you what would be. And I have ways to protect my data. So my next action will be to quickly do a remote wipe on my phone that will totally take my phone blank, right? So that whoever has access to my phone can only just enjoy my phone. But I have solutions on my phone that if my phone is stolen and in the next, I have my incident response time in my head. If I can't remember and I can't trace where it is, because of what I use my phone to do, the type of work that I do on my phone, right? It's very important that the data on my phone is not accessed by non technical people. So it would trigger my incident response plan, and I will initiate a phone wipe that wipes up my phone dead blank, like brand new, right? So if your phone is stolen today, the truth is your major reaction will be your data. Who has access to your information? What are they doing with that information, right? So who has access to that information and what are they doing with that information? There's so many data security risks that we experience today. External threats, right? I just gave an example of when somebody has stolen your phone, right? Um, Cyber attacks, ransomware, you could click. Nabila gave us an example. She has put phishing emails. She's accessing her emails on her phone. She doesn't want to mistakenly on her phone. You know how phone sometimes in your pocket or is in your bag, and then something just we're all used to pocket dial. So imagine just mistakenly the email is what your pocket decides to mistakenly click, right? So for her, her layer of security is to not even allow those phishing emails come into her inbox in the first place. So data security risk, cyber attacks, data breaches, ransomware attacks where you mistakenly click a link and they automatically encrypt all your drive and you can't have access to any of your data. Data security is also exposed to insider risk. There's this thing that is raining now in the internet. Somebody comes up to say something and everybody says, there's no evidence. Give us evidence. So there's this craziness and desire for people to trade insider information to people just so that those people who need something can have evidence. As much as I do not support anything that is malicious or illegal or unmoral, at the same time we need to respect people's privacy and respect conversations, right? So we wanted to record this meeting. What did we do? I said I was going to record. Imagine if you're having a conversation with somebody and the person doesn't tell you that they are recording you, and because you trust that that conversation is just between the two of you, they don't tell you they're recording you, or they don't tell you that there's somebody else within that room. You know that by virtue of data security, if you call me, for example, and you want to say something and I perceive what you want to say is private, I should let you know that I'm not in a private environment. But because we live in a world where everybody thinks everything is bad, some little etiquettes like this people don't know. You should by courtesy say, oh, guy, I know they where we fit talk, right? It's not necessarily because what the person wants to say is bad, is that you are understanding that that person wants to give you an information that they think is only for you, but you are in an environment where there are other people there. So we call that insider risks, where people have access to information and then they take that information and take it out and go and give out. Many times on the internet, we've seen memos, policy documents, informations that are being signed and should be labeled internal or confidential, publicly shared on the internet. And while it helps us to see some of the illegality, being done, for we in data and protections environments, we question how data security is handled in those kind of organizations, right? And that brings concern to some of us. So insider risks is one very big um, um, data security risk that we face today, right? Either by accident, somebody might stumble on an information by accident, or somebody through maliciousness, has access to certain information and can bring that information back. Permit me, I like to use controversial stories to teach because that seems to be what many of us are very relevant. So there is a popular personnel on the internet who is very known to call out people who do things that are wrong here. And we've seen several instances where this personnel has referenced, conversations that have been had. Now, while those references are very good evidences to prove or back his positions from a data security perspective, you begin to ask yourself, if the people who had those conversations or who are identified in those conversations were aware that they were being recorded, and so you will see why things like the GDPR laws and all of those things, are very clear on how you collect information, process information, right? Even as an organization. All right. Compliance challenges. So you have things like GDPR and all of that tell you if I take people's name, email, phone number, right? I should have a way that I protect it, and I should have a way that I secure it. And the people have a right to tell me that this their personal data that I collected, I should prove to them that I have destroyed it in the event where they do not want me to have access to that information. So GDPR does that. So today, for organizations in Europe, right? An example, a bank within the Europe region that has to collect your name, for example, and collect your address. You have the right, for example, if you don't want to transact with them, to request that all your data that exists with them be taken out, and you need evidence that they have done it under the GDPR regulatory law. So it's not just because they're excited to collect KYC. They also, that kind of organization will have to ask themselves certain questions as we progress. You will see around know your data, where's your data? So because a customer can choose to just wake up and say they want to trigger that clause in the GDPR, and as an organization, they need to respond. So compliance challenges, right? Increasing regulatory requirements for data protection is another data security risk. Now, the new kid on the block is AI. Everybody's excited about AI. I just launched my podcast on Spotify. I don't have my space because I have children. You can see my camera was turned on. I had to turn it off. My toddler woke up and I'm carrying her as I'm teaching to you. I'm literally standing, carrying a toddler, and I'm teaching. So that's my reality, right? But I have this idea and initiative of a podcast. But I know that my reality now can't allow me to do it without intrusion. So what did I do? I leveraged on AI. I create my content. I cloned my voice, and I began to create my Spotify, my podcast, and I'm hosting it on Spotify. It brings to question, that's data I'm generating. One will begin to ask, what's the security around the use of AI, right? While it might seemingly look like some of the things that we are doing now don't have too much risk, we need to think long term. I don't know if in one of the class where I gave an example, if it was here or in another speaking event, sorry, when you speak so many places, you hardly recall where you gave the story. But I told the story of how my older daughter, who is a young adult, she can make her decisions by herself, saw this AI tool and she liked it. And so she downloaded it, put her picture, liked what it created. And then she had a picture of herself and her younger ones, and which is the toddler and the 9-year-old, and she put their picture and it created this nice response. So I came back from work and my 9-year-old said, oh mommy, did you see on Auntie Vicky's status our picture is looking so cool? And I checked and it was cool. So when I started chatting with your sister, I said, how did you create it? She said, I said, oh, that's nice. And I said, oh, that reminds me, did you check what their data policy is? And she says, no, Mama, I didn't do that. And I can understand. She's not techie like me. She's business. I'm techie. So I said, oh, let's go. So we go to their settings. Boom. They have a setting where they say, if you don't want us to use your data to train our language model, switch off. There's a switch button. And she didn't turn it off. And so subtly, she had consented to that AI tool, right? To use whatever images, or in this instance, it was images because it's a picture app, to use it to train their language model. So AI's existence is also creating additional data security risk. So while we turned it off and she was excited that she had learned something new now, I could imagine how many other people would do the same thing, right? And not know that, such configurations exist and that they're supposed to make such changes in the event where they do not want their data to aid the AI language model to create. So in an organization, we must proactively think of how to protect classify and govern these data that we generate as an organization in order for us to reduce our risk. So this whole background was for you to understand how much data security is a big deal now where we are. Now, one of the major challenge that we face when we want to protect data is, where is this data? You and I will agree that data is everywhere. Nabila told us of her email. Data is there. Her child playing Roblox. Data is being exchanged. Um, her devices that have apps data. We're having this conversation and we're recording it. And as we're having this conversation, I have told 2 personal stories, right? That's data. Information is data. So data is sitting everywhere. People are collaborating across different platforms. We're on WhatsApp today and we're sharing things across WhatsApp. We're on social media. We're also sharing things. We have created our LinkedIn profiles. We're using portfolio management. I just recently turned up one new app where I'm trying to post, different use case scenarios for people to try out, to apply their skills. We're just creating, merging, interacting, and all of this thing is generating information and data. The big question is, how do we balance security and usability, right? People must use these tools. People must interact with these tools. But how do we ensure the right security? And the major challenge for organization is, how do they even know what people are using? And how do they even know the data people are generating? Imagine, how do you know, right? Your kids are on their device. How much information do you know that they're generating? Which is why it's important to put those parental guides that we talked about, right? You are in an organization, you are in department A, another organization in department B. How do you know that the people in treasury that they interact with bonds, how do you know what they do, where they save it? Without the right solutions, organizations will continuously struggle with security incidents, with compliance violations, because they don't know where this data is. They don't know the type of data that the people are generating. And that's where this whole data and AI security using information security solutions like Purview come into existence. We can never be tired of zero trust. We talked about zero trust, remember, in identity, right? Where we talked about, because we need to verify you, what do? We put in multi-factor authentication. And then because we need to apply least privilege, we use the roles where we only give you what you need, right? And then because of the concept of, we need to understand that every action is a potential breach, we use things like conditional access policies and continuous responses to make sure that we ensure that you are who you say you are. It's the same thing when it comes to data. So in data protection, we need to know data. Where does data exist? Where is this data? And we can only do it through classification. You must sit as an organization and classify the type of data that you generate. What are the type of data that we generate? And once we understand the type of data that we generate financial data, we generate personal data, we generate medical record data, whatever type of data, you classify them, and then you create labels for those data. Once we can classify and label, then we can now control access to those data. Are you seeing? And this would also help us align with the zero trust methodology. Any questions so far? So the sequence at which we use Purview, right, would be, we would classify. In data classification, we say understand, identify where your data is, categorize this based on the sensitivity of the information that is in that data. If not, you have too many rubbish data, right? But based on the sensitivity, you can classify it, right? Now create sensitivity labels that you use. You can even, on top of that, put encryption based on the type of data that you are using. And then you want to now create retention policies that determine whether this data should stay for this long, or whether this data should be preserved, or whether this data is not needed. Remember, I said that some of these compliance regulatory require for you to either keep some data within some period or not keep some data, right? And you can do all of these things without blocking productivity. Um, so what we're trying to say is that, and I'm trying to arrive at why we need tools like, Purview. So we need tools like Purview because you don't know all the data that is in your organization. So you want to be able to classify, encrypt, protect. You also want to be able to prevent insiders threats. I said where people, because by virtue of being in this organization, right, they have access to information, they can take information out, they can share information with somebody. You want to be able to know, right, who did that. Again, using the example of the individual that I said is very prominent on one of the social media platforms. Recently when he got involved with one of the government authorities, right, there were lots of questions as to why the government authorities took him and all of that, and the way that they took him. And I had a chat with somebody and I said that I will tell you from my own experience one of the reasons why I believe that they took him, right? At several times, this individual has said that he has certain information about the government, right? And when you make such strong statements, right, the question for the government is, where do you have that information? Right. And if you recall, this individual gave mention that his mobile phone was taken from him by these government agencies when they took him. And I told someone, I said, that's it. I told you, right? So what the investigation is trying to do is now to be able to trace where this young chap gets his information. So ideally, we live in a world where maybe back in the days when we had activists doing activism, right? Because there was nothing like internet, there was nothing like iCloud. These things did not exist when the likes of Nelson Mandela and the likes of Martin Luther King then were doing activism, right? So I trust you, they did not worry about whether their mobile phones, but I could tell you that they needed to protect the people who gave them certain informations, right? So I told someone, I said, what this individual needs to understand is that while he has the charisma and the capability to challenge the institution, he also needs to begin to think around how the information that he's being given and the people who give him this information need to be protected. I said that because that is where these guys will be one step ahead of him. So it's the same thing. So organizations too are generating information. People have their IPs, their intellectual properties that because you are a staff, you have access to it. People have their recipes and remedy. I read a story, I don't know how true, I don't know how true, it's one of these stories on the internet of a lady who had access to the recipe for, I think it's Coke or so, and whether wanted to sell it to Pepsi or so. And then the person she wanted to sell it said, no, it's intellectual property. So I can't remember, but that's it. Now, if that story is what it is, right? Imagine this staff working in Coke, right? And by virtue of her role, had access to an intellectual property that she was willing to go and trade it. Maybe she was disgruntled, maybe she didn't like how she was treated and she wanted to trade it. And imagine if that company did not have integrity of business, right? And they were happy to take that information that she was going to give. Imagine the impact on the Coca-Cola brand, right? So it's the same thing. Whatever you are doing today, the information that you are generating, you need to ask yourself, right? The people that are having access to this information, what can they do and what's the implication of what they can do? So some of the common risks we see with insider threats is unauthorized sharing. People get access to information that they should not share, right? People come and say things that they should not. One common thing that we see in today's, you will see people married, one family member will come and then the person will go and tell people that our brother and our houseboy for a house, so now in the wash plate for house. Meanwhile, husband and wife have agreed. Maybe that's bros strength, right? Maybe even bros is happy to wash plate as long as madam is helping him pay 50% of the house rent. You don't know, but you just came to their house and you just carry nonsense gist and well. So you can see that insider trade. So that's why you will see some people say, when I get married, I will never allow outsiders come into our home. Not necessarily because they are mean, but because we've seen cases where insider trade, people have come into people's home platforms, and by virtue of being in people's spaces, right, they've been able to compromise, information. So now they are aware that Oga washes plates, and they have gone, to say. So things like that. I like to use very real world scenarios for you to paint it in the corporate world. So it's the same thing. Because you need to do your job, you have access to information. Maybe you're in HR, and because you are in HR, maybe you work with the executive in HR, so you know the salary of all the senior executives, you know the salary of all the board members, and you tend to forget that that role is a sensitive role. And so maybe one day, because you are disgruntled, maybe your boss speaks to you somehow, you want to show her, you go and trade. We're now in a world where bloggers pay good money to be able to get information, and you're willing to go and trade that information to a blog to say, oh, this company, see how much they earn, see the personal information about it. So an organization needs to begin to think that payroll and all this information, right? How do we protect this kind of information? Yes, you cannot remove it from people's head, but remember, people don't want you to come and say, people want you to show them evidence, right? So how do we protect the content where this information is? Data that is stored in unprotected location, and that's the thing. This place that we studied, this our HR system, this our payroll system, right? How do we protect it such that when people try to screen munch pay slip, or when people try to copy down staff payrolls, right, it will be able to protect that data, right? If they want to take it out of the organization, it will trigger an alert and all of that. How do we prevent people to be able to save this kind of information on their personal devices? If they're using company devices, then that's fine. One of the reasons why your organization will not allow you copy things from your personal to your corporate is because of some of the things I told you, where an organization can automatically wipe a data, or because of encryption, right? Even if you carry it to Otigba. For those of you who are Nigerians, Otigba is our computer village, where we have those computer guys who have learned computer very ruggedly, but still, because of encryption, they might not be able to crack, right, the data. So what they'll do is, they've stolen your laptop, they can take your laptop, they can remove the hard drive, throw it away because it's of no use to them anymore, right? Or they'll just format the hard drive. But your company will to an extent say that their data is protected, and that's what encryption does, right? Malicious insiders, I've talked about staffs who get offended, who feel like they were not treated right, and then want to take this information and sell it out. So some of the ways we can mitigate this is through these data protection policies that we are going to be seeing and talking about, through what we call the insider risk management, right? And through things like adaptive protection, where if we see a particular behavior, or we see a particular activity happening on this person's system, then is a trigger to take up some actions. So in Microsoft Purview, right, you can be able to review users' activities, and you can be able to investigate incidents. You can get alerts and triggers based on activities that have happened on systems or mobile devices, right? You can use what we call the Activity and Content Explorer to see all the data sources that you have pointed the organization to, right? It can analyze these data sources and tell you where potential sensitive information exists. So for example, things like credit card details by default are classified as sensitive information. And you can find out that some people imagine people who work in credit card companies, right? So you, who is a credit card user, you haven't really sat down to say, this is my credit card number that they've given me my ATM card, right? And they have told me that I should not share with anybody. The company that created this card and the number, how do they ensure that it is also secured from their end? So while I am now the custodian of the card, right, and they've told me that this card that I have, right, that I should not share it with anybody and my PIN, but the people that created this card, have you asked yourself, when they were creating it, did somebody see the number? Is it that they used to blindfold themselves when they are creating the card? And so when they are, Jesus, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know, my
Yes,
system
we can
just
hear you,
went
ma'am.
blank. Okay, all right, sorry, my system just went blank for phone. All right, okay. So have you asked yourself that these ATM card companies, right, they too, their staff saw the number, right? Their staff, saw the PIN. Have you asked yourself, the people who manage your PIN, there's something called PIN management, right? That's why the computer can say it is wrong PIN, right? That platform platform, how are they securing it? This curiosity that is how I got into tech. Curiosity to know how these things go beyond me, the consumer, right? So the organizations that need to give you that confidence, right, they are the ones who would also need, you would be working for. You imagine yourself working in a card company, right, and you have to work in data protection. You now understand maybe certain laws and certain restrictions. So we have things like the PCI DSS compliance law that will say that departments that are responsible for managing card services, right, all their devices should have encryption. You will now understand why they said it, because the people who are in card services, right, who are the people that when you call and say, I'm in this front of this ATM, I'm using my card and it's throwing up an error, they'll say, give us the first 4 letters of your distance, give us the last 6 letters of your distance. And then when they put it in the system, they'll say, okay, you are correct. How did they know you are correct? It's because the system gave them the other one. The first and the 6 is a constant, while the variable is the middle, right? And so they will now be able to see your this thing. But that moment they're trying to troubleshoot your issue, they've gotten access to your personal information. So PCI DSS will require that their system have encryption, just so that if for any reason that person saves that PAN on their system, right, is encrypted. So you see the enormous work and dependencies that organizations have in ensuring and protecting your data. So Microsoft Pulse will also help us see everywhere this kind of data exists, right? And then using things like the Microsoft Defender Extended DR, we'll be able to now get signals and triggers that tell us where it is. So for example, if somebody is copying a PAN is the number, the 16-digit number on your card. So if somebody is copying it from the company, payment system and pasting it on their Google email or their Google chat, right, it will trigger an alert, right? Or it will even stop it first of all and say you are not allowed to do this. So I took one of my corporate laptop that I'm supposed to submit back. I got a replacement, and I needed to prepare a learning plan for somebody. And my office laptop will allow you to say if you're preparing a document, is it corporate or not? Especially if you're the one generating the document. So it's not corporate. So I selected personal. That is not, so it didn't give me the corporate label. But when I was done and I wanted to send it to my personal email, it told me no, you're not allowed to do it. So while our company will allow you use your company laptop, right, to create content that probably are not for office. So I selected a label, not personal. They still know that there's the potential that maybe a user is just not saying the truth, right? It's possible that that thing is corporate, right? But I have said not corporate so that to not put a label. So what have they done on this? Another layer they've put that you cannot take any company data and paste in your personal email. So why I can open my personal email on my company laptop, right? Which I typically won't do, but because it's a laptop I'm handing over back. And I just felt like, oh, it was easier to do that document there. I just saw that and I started laughing. I said, I like this. So at every layer, they assume breach. Remember the zero trust methodology. So when I turned on, when I created the label, I said that this is not a person, this is not a company document. They still needed to assume breach that this document I'm trying to upload to my personal email is that I'm taking company data away. And so they had to also restrict it. So you have different of these solutions, playing into, you see them acting up at different levels based on the need. Now let's move into AI, which is one of the new concerns that we have, right? Again, Purview will allow you to protect sensitive data from unauthorized AI modeling training. So you can copy company information and paste in ChatGPT and say, ChatGPT, help me do blah 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 blah. And ChatGPT will do it and you're happy. But you've forgotten that because ChatGPT is a public language model, that data that you copied and pasted, ChatGPT took that data and used it to train his language model. So tomorrow, maybe that data says, the recipe for Coca-Cola is 5 sugar, 2 apple syrup. I'm just giving an example, and 1 still water. Right? Now, maybe your boss give you a task, you're an analyst, and says, I need you to go and do a proportion to show if we rejuggle this recipe, right, and reduce it by 2% of all the ingredients, right? I want you to give me what the output will be, and you want to do some calculation so that you can take it and maybe put it back in some model. And young Gen Z, you found out ChatGPT makes life easy. You just copy, you didn't go to ChatGPT and create a story in your head and say, I want you to work with me where I want to calculate, right, a 10% reduction if I have a solution that has an ingredient of 50% this. Are you seeing it? So now ChatGPT doesn't know you're referring to Coca-Cola. You will go and copy it straight like that and say, Coca-Cola 50% this. You now say, give me the 2% reduction. So you have told ChatGPT that this is the formula. So tomorrow, if somebody comes and says, ChatGPT, do you know the recipe of Coca-Cola? I see how AI works. ChatGPT will now reply, the recipe of Coca-Cola is 50% this, 20, and you will see that AI will put it there and tell you, verify my information. It might not be correct, but guess what? It has given you an idea. So that's why you have to be careful how you use your prompting on the language models, right? So you use it to do your work, but you must tweak it. You don't copy and paste. I had a very senior executive who calls me from time to time to bounce some of her tech ideas with me. I don't work for the organization where she's at. She's actually left out there, she's doing her own thing. And so she had this document she wanted to compare, and then she gave me. And I was so busy, so she had called for it like 2 times, and I apologized. She said, just put it up in ChatGPT, Joy, this thing make life easier for you. I just busted out laughing. She was like, I said, ma, I don't understand you. Even if I wanted to put it up in ChatGPT, which I agree with you, I will need to sanitize it. She said, what does that mean? She said, just upload the thing. I said, ma, sorry, hold on. Have you done this before? She said, yes. The first thing I did, I posted, I said, man, you took company name, company reference, and you pasted in ChatGPT, and you got it. She said, yes. I said, man, did you ask yourself? And I said, man, do you have a licensed enterprise? Not even because I use a paid ChatGPT. Even the paid ones still uses our data to model. I said, do you have an enterprise ChatGPT license? She said, I don't even have the paid one. I said, Gbamio. I said, man, you just took your company information, your client information, and you gave it to ChatGPT, and it's going to use that information and train its model. By the time I did this kind of explanation, she was like, oh my gosh, she never knew. So that's the challenge, right? Why we need to be sensitive. Now, people just want to do that. Well, go and Google the, I think it was on, is this Slack? Just Google, there's a ChatGPT data breach that happened. I think it was early this year. I can't remember the company, if it was Slack or so. Somebody just took a code, company code, live code. He wanted to debug the code, took the code like that, pasted in ChatGPT, right? And ChatGPT found what the problem was, but he just took a source code and pasted. Are you seeing it? Now, tomorrow, if a hacker is trying to find how to breach that company, and randomly the hacker just says, do you know the source code of how Zoom was configured? And let's assume it was Zoom. ChatGPT just brings it out, boom, this is the source code of Zoom. And the hacker might not, know it's correct, but just takes it and then find, and now say, can you help me find where the security bugs are? And then it takes it and creates the security bug. Now you can see how AI can be good, but at the same time can be a threat to us. So we must, as cybersecurity people, look for ways to protect sensitive data from unauthorized AI modeling. We must prevent AI tools from generating inappropriate or risky content. Again, organizations that are creating AI models need to also make sure that their AI models are not over hallucinating, are not releasing false contents too. So as cybersecurity people, we put in those guardrails. I don't know who remembered, I think a couple of months where somebody used ChatGPT and said, ChatGPT, create for me an international passport for, I don't know, the country. And ChatGPT did exactly. Then the person went, I think, on Twitter and tweeted about it. And then ChatGPT now went and fixed that. So that's a security flaw, because they don't want to be known. Now we know that there are AI tools there that are for malicious content, but that's not what ChatGPT wants to. So ChatGPT went to fix that bug, right? And then increase. So if you go now and type it, you see that it will tell you that it was not allowed. There's a language to speak for you. It's not allowed to create those kind of things. It put in those guardrails. So part of our job is to make sure that data that we are generating, we're not allowing it to be used inappropriately, right? And then we must ensure compliance again with regulations, and that's where you will see on Purview. We'll be looking at that next week on how Purview uses the data security posture management for AI to provide these security controls. Have I got you to start thinking and wondering, how many AI tools have I installed and used, and how many information have I put inside there? And how many times have I copied config information and pasted in ChatGPT? Right? Am I getting some people to start saying, Egbamio, what have I done? All right, so let's take it up a bit. In Purview, we would say, the way in identity, I gave you the 4 A's, the 4 pillars of identity, which is authentication, authorization, right, and administration and auditing. In data, we have our own 4 foundations framework, which is know your data, protect your data, prevent data loss, and then govern your data. So this is the 4 chain framework that we'll use to complete our learning today on information protection management. So let's know our data. When we want to know our data, what are we trying to do? We want to understand the data landscape everywhere our data is. So in an organization, you want to know everywhere data is being generated, whether it is in file server, whether it is in Teams, whether it is in SharePoint, whether it's in OneDrive, whether it's in email, whether it is in Entra, everywhere, whether it is in people's laptops, whether it is people's removable drives. You want to know everywhere, whether it is in the applications, the different applications people are using across different departments, right? Whether it is in the third-party applications that they are using. You want to know everywhere that your data exists, right? And you want to now protect it, prevent it, and govern it. So we're looking at this bit by bit, right? So when we come to knowing data, right? How do we know data? We have to classify this data. Just knowing the fact that you're a company means you're generating data now, but then you now want to classify your data. So let me use a very simple business case that people know, right? You are a boutique, right? Running your business, and your customers come here and there. Now you have different types of customers. You have customers who will come and want to do bank transfer. Then you have customers who will come that want to use the POS. And then you have customers who will come and want to pay cash, right? Right. The 3 different, means of, paying for the value of the service that you are giving them. Now, for you to be able to know, whether your money is intact, is what do you do? For cash, you look at your vault. So you have to ask yourself, where do I keep this cash? Every time they pay for this cash, where am I going to keep it? So what do? You either buy a vault, right? Some of you still use drawer, old school drawer. My parents, you're business people too. So the old school drawer, you open the drawer, put it there and lock it with key. Modernized businesses are now buying vaults that you put your safe vaults that you put your money inside. So that's data. So the business has put, when you do POS transaction, right? The POS app has where you can check your balance. And then when they pay through bank transfers, what do? You do your you check your alert. Are you seeing? So different types of means of paying, that's data being generated, information, and different ways. So you must understand how to, when you know your data, you want to classify this data. Now, all of these transactions can now be classified as sensitive. So you now want to ask it. So as we progress, you will now understand how will this business protect it. So we will classify the transaction of paying for business as a sensitive information type, right? When people come and pay, says it. So for those of you who are Igbos, who your parents practice the one boy business. My dad was an Igbo man, and so in our house, at every time we had a minimum of 5 boys who were going through their trade program, right? And so for everyone who is about to get settled, there's a new person that has been brought in, right, to start learning, because somebody is going to go and then somebody will now be promoted to this. So that new person that comes in is not allowed to touch money. That new person that comes in can go and bring business. We call it Osaya. He can go into the market road, canvas for business. He can clean, he can take stock, but he cannot touch money. right? So sensitive information type is you are classifying your data in different levels. You can say this data, right, is data that everybody in the organization can see. This data is data that only executive directors can see. This data is data that everybody can see, but they cannot copy out, right? So your sensitive information type, which we like to use the terminology SIT, helps you detect structured patterns. So for example, credit card is a structured pattern. Your social security number is a structured pattern. Your NIN number is a structured pattern. Your driver's license is a structured pattern. Your bank account, these are structured patterns. So you can, based on this structured pattern, tell Purview to say anywhere you see this information, classify it as this. Let it be this. This is what it is supposed to be used for, right? Then we also have what we call trainable classifiers, where we can tell the AI that is infused in Purview to say, go and check our data. If you see this pattern, right? So it's not a structured pattern, but it's a mix of here. Go and learn, for example, go and learn how our contracts are being written. So for example, we had what we call LPO that we used to give contractors. So if you come to bid for a job and you qualify for that job, right, we'll give you an LPO. And in that LPO, are you saying we now need to classify, we need to now say, is an LPO a sensitive information? We want the trainable classifier to go and help us. So the trainable classifier can go and say, in your LPO, you used to put account number, right? I'm just saying, or in an LPO, you used to put the value of the contract, right? Then somebody will now say, the value of the contract, our company is a company that needs to publicly declare, for example, government parastatals must publicly declare projects and publicly declare the amount because it's government money they are using. But a private firm might not want people to know the value of this because it's a private business. Private business don't owe their staff to tell them that the MD has a private jet maintenance of this. No, it's business they are giving you, right? They provide the service, their customers pay. If the company says that all the profit that they get is the MD that was using it to private jet, he doesn't owe it to the cleaner who is collecting 10K to feel it's private business, right? But the government is obliged to tell you what they do with your money because it's citizens tax pay. Are you seeing the difference? So what you will call sensitive information in a private firm might not necessarily be sensitive information in a government institute, right? So in the government institute, they tell you to declare your money. You declare if you have any other asset, if you have any other thing, right? The public must know that you have this kind of amount when you're coming to serve in a public office. But in a private firm, an organization might ask you to declare, but the organization will classify it as sensitive because the next person in the organization is not supposed to know. You only declared it for transparency, right, to the business by virtue of requirement of the company, but not that is a public information for all. But in this other hand, in the government parastatals, when they declare, it's published in the newspaper, and we all know that, when Joy was appointed as governor of Abia State, right, she already had 10 duplex, right, in Abuja. She had 5 companies worth a total of 5 billion naira, right? So even though she's coming now to serve as the governor of Abia State, right, we can now say that it's not our government money that she used because before she became governor, this is what she declared. Are you saying, Ambassadors, if I am going to work for a certain organization, I would declare for transparency again so that they know that this is what I have and what I want. But that information, they are compounded by data privacy, not to make it accessible to any other person. So imagine somebody working in HR who happens to get access to that information. Maybe the person is sitting somewhere in their family this thing, and the person, meets their cousin brother who they haven't met for long, and he says, I be the date one girl named Joy like this. That girl broke my heart. And let me see, this Joy, I know her now. She's our head of HR. She works in our company. Really? You mean that she do you this thing? Oh, this girl hurt me, man. She took my money. She after all this Brazilian hair I bought for her and everything. Bros, that one is not good though. So you come back at work. Your madam that used to smile before you start to vex, wetin no concern you. It's not your business what your brother, cousin, and Joy did. What you have carried beef on your head, and the next thing you now look for ways to sell out information that you have about Joy. So you begin to understand why it's very important in a corporate environment. There are certain sensitive information type. Now, because we don't know all, we will push out this AI to go and look at behavioral patterns in documents, and then it will now come back to us and recommend and say, I can see this kind of words in contracts, I can see them in legal documents, I can see them in HR reports. What do I classify? Then we will now say, okay, let's classify these things as sensitive because the information it has is what has made it now a sensitive information. Am I making sense, guys? Okay, so why would you use, you guys have done that yesterday now, you zone out on me. I'm not knowing that I'm talking to myself alone. It's okay. I still love you guys regardless. It's fine.
I'm still here,
Okay.
ma.
Thank you, Demola. Thank you for not abandoning me. The others have kept Adezi,
We are
thank you.
here.
The others have abandoned me. It's okay. All right.
We
Let's
didn't say that to
continue.
you, but we're listening.
We
All
are
right. Thank you.
here.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Now,
I hear
why would you use sensitive information type? Why? There's a big why. Simple. Data is structured. So when the data is structured, then it makes it easy for you to, to say, like I said, to classify it. Credit card, sensitive. BVN, sensitive. Social security number, sensitive. Like these are structured data. So whether it is inside a report or whether it is copy and paste standalone or whether it is a scandal, anywhere this thing is, we have classified it because of that structured data that is there. That content or that information becomes right sensitive. So in those kind of instance, right, if we want to detect structured data consistently, that's when we'll use Microsoft sensitive information type, right? Now, if we want to support types of labeling in structured patterns too, we will use sensitive information types. So for example, if we want to create a label for anything that has credit card number, if I want that label to be able to catch it, I have to first of all use a sensitive information type that I will tie to a label. You guys will see it when we're doing hands-on, for me to be able to say that this is a content that has a credit card number. So in situations where you want to support labeling and protection, right, for data that are tied to structured data, you want to use that. And then for compliance purposes, again, I gave you an example. PCI DSS will say anywhere this is. So to make your life easy, you want to scan and say, show me all the places that have card related information, and based on that, you will now apply whatever policy or compliance requirement. Sensitive information types are used again to support sensitive labels and auto labeling policies. Again, you don't want to manually be the one at every time labeling things. I just give an example. The guys who work in, I've been in an organization where we're regulated by PCI DSS, and so the department that handled card, they will tell you, no, I don't. No, now I don't save pan on my. I don't save pan on my system. If I just open the portal, take what I need to do and do. Why would I say when you scan? There are tools that we use to scan. You will see pan on their system, and the dangers of it is there was a particular incident. This guy came to work, and for some weird reason, his desktop did not work. And customers issues are there. So it calls IT support. If you understand how organizations are structured, you know that IT support are those young guys. Some of them contract staff, their salary sometimes way back then didn't even used to hit 70,000, 80,000. If you remember that those contract staff, they are young boys, young, some of them used to be OND holders, contract staff. Now just play this mental picture I'm giving you, and then they come, take that desktop, give you another one, and then they take it to their lab. Young boys, young guys, most times we enter their lab very disorganized. They are there, they have where they are eating, mama food. They're just young, hungry boys, hungry for knowledge, who coming through contract staff recruitment. And then I happened to head a team that they were reporting to, and we had this particular incident. They had the desktop. I can't remember what was happening, so we needed to. I had to go into that office to sit with them, And lo and behold, they powered up this desktop. We're looking for a particular desktop. So they powered on this other desktop. And as they powered it on, I had to play around. As someone who had more experience, I told them, give me the mouse. And by playing around to find out what we're looking for, lo and behold, I see pan, not maxed out pan, and Excel with full pan details. Now, for those who have worked with me, they know I am very thorough to the core when it comes to security. So at that point, I confiscated that desktop and I said, I don't want anybody working on this stuff. Go and drop it on my table, right? Now, what went through my head was tomorrow, a customer will say they have frauded them. A customer will say, I'm seeing a transaction happen on my system. And this was when technology was just, I don't know how many of you remember those days where there were some payment sites where you don't need to have the PIN. As long as you have the PAN and the CVV, the transaction will go. I can't remember what it was called back then. There were some websites. That was how, international website, but that was how many of these guys that used to do Yahoo back then, when they go abroad and steal cards, right? What do they call your gift cards, right? How do you, because you know that you could put money in gift cards, right? Or they would just, like, gift cards had money that you could use to just shopping. So when they get it like that, people will just use those gift cards to shop. They don't necessarily need to know the PIN. And then they will shop stuff. And then when it lands Nigeria, they will now sell it. If you remember, then you have some guys in your neighborhood that will be selling some very nice Timberland and laptops that you'll be wondering, they'll be selling them at ridiculous prices. That's how sorry, I've worked with financial fraud for a long time, so I might be saying some things that are weird to you guys, but I understood how the whole Ratel used to work then. But so my brain was just spinning on how this young team of boys, you won't even know who did it because it was somebody will just export that Excel and go and sell it to his cousin, brother, whatever, and customers will declare fraud, and then we'll be here having sleepless night trying to troubleshoot. I didn't find it funny with that team. I escalated, and but the point was, we had to now sit back and say, we can't leave the power of security to the users. I'm going somewhere with my story, and that's where things like auto labeling comes in. So now we have auto labeling where, as long as you generate content on your system, the system will force a label to be applied to that content based off the sensitive information type. So if we have sensitive information types for credit cards in the system, as long as Purview sees that you have a document that has credit card in it, it will automatically apply whatever. So if we said the sensitive information type for credit card is confidential, for example, it will automatically apply that label. Now, when we move to data protection, you will see what we do with labels. So in data protection, we can say if a label is confidential, encrypt it, or if a label is confidential, don't allow it to be sent to personal email. Are you seeing it? So that way, the moment that thing is confidential, right, even if those guys have seen it, they won't be able to copy it out because there will be a protection policy behind it. But in this instance, there was no label, there was nothing. This is an Excel file. There was not even encryption on the hard drive, and these young guys had access to it. So in security, that's how we think data. Where is it going to? Who will have access to it? In case something happens and somebody has access, what can they do with this data, right? And these are instances where sensitive information type is needed. What's the data life cycle, right? We can also even create policy to say that if a sensitive information type has existed in the last 10 years, delete. So that way you will know that, because you and I know that for example, your credit card will not last more than 4 years, right? So if, for example, if I'm setting a policy for a department that troubleshoots card related issues, I can choose to want to put a retention policy of 6 months, because I do not want to believe that a customer that has made a complaint 6 months ago, that issue is still open. No customer will stay with you that's complained of card issue for 6 months. So I want to put a life cycle management policy on the systems in a particular department that manages card details, to say anytime it sees card related content, right, in 6 months, it should delete it. Those kind of things, because for me, if I were in an organization, that's my logic. That's what I'll be challenging anybody that tells me, oh no, I will even say less than, because if you look at SLA, I don't think any customer will allow you keep their tickets open for 3 months, saying they are resolving their card issues. But I'm just trying to paint you a picture of typically how this, how it works. I've talked about the trainable classifiers, right? So trainable classifiers, we pre-train it. Microsoft will help us train it. For example, you can see, I don't know if you've seen some platforms where you cannot use certain vulgar. Let's use the example. Those of you who are very big on social media, right? If you go live, if some of you use your social media for doing live, right? You know that there are some terminologies or words that you cannot use. So when we want to say things like, even in this recording now, because it's going to go to YouTube, right? There's some words I cannot use because the trainable classifiers will scan them. So that's even how they get copyright. So those of you who use people's music without, right ownership, you may wonder, how is YouTube able to detect it? It means that they have gone and scanned the database of musics, right? And they have a catalog of music and the owners of music. And so when they see those musics in your content, right, and you are not the owner, because remember, you set up your profile, you're not the owner of those, then they will say that you have copyright infringements in your content. Use that same concept too when it comes to a corporate environment. We can say that we don't want to use certain terminologies, right? We don't want people to use certain words right here. And so we can train that the purview can train and create labels, right, that allows it to be able to detect when those kind of things exist. Any question? All right.
Yes, ma'am, I have a question.
All right. So we'll be looking at how to create, custom trainable classifiers when we move into hands-on. All right. So what have we done here? We have understood that when we know our data, right, we need to classify our data, right? We need to we need to classify our data. We need to understand where our data is. We need to evaluate it. We need to analyze it. We need to ensure the right policies, right? And then this can help us generate or regenerate reports. Now, one tool that is very cool in Purview is the Data Explorer and Content Explorer. Once you go to Purview, an organization, if you enable Purview, it will automatically scan everything Microsoft that you have, your emails and all of that, and it will automatically give you some form of classifications. So you will see your content based on different classifications. You call this sensitive, you call this, it will just classify it. So even from that start as an organization, it gives you some idea of the kind of data that is being generated in your organization. So I always recommend people to just start from there, even if they don't know what to do. So if you're currently in an organization and you have access to security.microsoft.com or purview.microsoft.com, log in there and just go to Data Explorer, Content Explorer, information protection, and then you see Data Explorer or Content Explorer. You just see how it has automatically classified the data that your organization has without seeing that. It's not going to show you what the actual data is, but it will just tell you that this is the kind of sensitive information that your organization is already generating. And then based off this, right, if you're using the Activity Explorer, you can now also monitor the usage. So it can tell you that these data you have X number of them here, right? And so that can help you now create policies around those kind of data, or know the departments that are using it, and then go ahead to manage them. All right. Now we have what we call the built-in sensitive information type. I've said it, and you can also create. So Microsoft has done, some very good work here. We have over 300 built-in sensitive information type. When we go into the dashboard, it will make sense. I'm trying to maximize time, so I've seen some of these things are a bit repetitive. And then we also have the custom. So in custom, what do? Imagine an organization that uses a form every time that maybe registration for, like embassy. Now, if you go to the embassy, their form is static. Whether you have money to travel or you don't have money to travel, you can go and apply for visa. Abi, it's one form. Whether you are $10 or whether you are non-Otedola. When you want to apply for visa, it's the same form they used to use. I mean, it's when you now answer what is there that will determine, right? It's the same form. So because of the information that they collect, right, and the regulatory that governs the embassies, right, if they wanted to protect visa application based on that, they will create it as a custom, they'll create a custom information type to cover the visa application, because that form is their own. They created it, they know what the data that is there, and they can now use different types of methods, right, to check for sensitivity there. Because remember, when you're doing visa, there's so many things put there. For example, they'll ask you, have you gone to jail before? If you're applying for visa, they'll ask you, have you gone to jail before? So those kind of information is not information. So they definitely would want to classify visa form with some form of scientific label. So they will use the custom type, right? And then they can now look for keywords that they will say anywhere they see it, so that if the people who work in the embassy who have access to this information for some weird reasons, right? Somebody wants to be compromised or somebody wants to share that information, they can be able to protect it using like this. So they will use certain keywords to identify it. Then they would also create certain limitations, things that cannot happen. And then they can now create the rule that says, must this rule be exactly like this? Or if it has just part of the hash, then it should detect it as the exact document. They even have what we have, the document fingerprinting. So we can take a template form, right, and upload the template form into Purview and say, anywhere you see this template, right, classify it as this. That's another type. So we have the exact data match type of custom. We have the fingerprint, document fingerprint type. So that exact data match is that you're going to use a keyword and say, anywhere you see this keyword, right? Of course, you can't do things like account. Those are sensitive, those are common words. You can't say account number. I can't just saying account number, you might match even something that is not sensitive, because I can just be chatting my days and say, Daisy, I beg, Roger me something for my account number. Will you go and flag that now sensitive? So when you're doing this kind of thing, you also have to avoid using very common words, but you want to look for maybe sensitive words that are very peculiar, right, to that data that is being generated in the organization. So you don't want to use very common terminologies. For document fingerprinting, you take the exact template that you always use to send out. So for example, if you're an organization that sends out, oh, fill this form, but the information you're collecting from those people, the regulators require you to apply certain policies to it. You can just take that form to Purview and say, anywhere you see this form, label it, you give it a type of name, maybe confidential, sensitive, or something. And so based on that, you will now put policies. So we have exact data type, we have fingerprint, document fingerprint. These are different ways of creating sensitivity labels if you don't want to use the 300 plus that Microsoft has, right? Again, like I said, some of these things are very repetitive, so I'll just be moving through them. What can we do with sensitivity labels? You can encrypt. So when you create a sensitive label, you can actually say you want to encrypt it. I'll give you an example where we can say that anywhere you see credit card, encrypt that document. So in that instance, imagine if we were using this kind of tool back in the days where that thing happens. Even if that Excel was there, it would have been encrypted. So when we open it to be gibberish, it will not be showing us the plain text, right? You can also, when you use sensitive labels, you can say anywhere this thing goes. So if you like, copy it from your system to your email, it will be encrypted. Copy it from your email to your OneDrive, it will be encrypted. The encryption will be following it, just they follow and they go. Gum himself like what would I call himself now? You gum yourself like super glue to rat. Just gum yourself like that. Sensitive label can follow you anywhere if done properly. You can also use it to now protect non-Microsoft apps. Back in the days when we started, it wasn't possible, but now there are certain non-Microsoft apps that you can use. So what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that the document has to be created in Microsoft Word, Excel. No, right? There's some, but it's not yet all. So you have to do the research to find out the type of non-Microsoft apps that sensitivity labels can use. And you can also use it to manage privacy, container privacy, SharePoint container, Teams containers, even meetings and chat security, right? So people are chatting in meetings and chat. You want to use sensitivity labels to also protect meetings and chat. You can use sensitivity labels to apply visual markings, where you can say that anywhere it sees this, automatically put a bold marking. So you see all these people that are doing content creation, right? That will put those visual markings in their content, right? So that even if you take it and repost it, it's very clear that you got it from so place, right? Use that same concept, right, to understand visual marking in corporate data protection, right? We can say anywhere you see this information, put a visual marking that confidential, sensitive across that content. So I like to use social media because I know many of you are on it, and so that's what you can relate with. All right. Sensitivity labels, again, this is typically how you will see it, right? You will go to information protection. For this slide, I would like to show it real life. So I'll just jump here and we'll navigate through it in the real platform. The same thing with auto labeling. I'll show it in Purview directly instead of spending time here explaining it. It's best to see it. All right. Now, you can manage sensitivity labels in also Office apps. We've talked about it. So you can manage it in Windows, you can manage it in Mac, you can manage it in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you can manage it in, again, it doesn't support old Office. So if your organization is still using old school Windows 2003 and the rest, all those ones you buy from Computer Village or Tigba, it will not be able to work. Just saying it. It can also work in Defender for Cloud apps. In this instance, this is where for third-party apps, right? You saw how we were doing SSO integration for Canvas, for for AWS and the rest. So as your organization will begin to integrate Entra into those third-party apps, right? You can also apply sensitivity labels. So for example, let's take Canvas, right? The guys who are in communications and media, imagine your organization is creating an ad. You got a brief for a customer who is about to launch a new product, and your company has been given the contract to create the ad for that new product. And you have an intern who is there and he's so excited that he's working on the project. And the guy wants to show himself to his girlfriend that, oh, more, this ad that this social company is going to launch tomorrow, man, it's my team that is doing it. We have this, my company got the contract. And he wants to excite and wow this girl that he has been eyeing and toasting for a while. So he goes into Canva and downloads the ad and carries it and sends to his girlfriend. His girlfriend too is also a media person. That's how he met her. He met her in one of all these media meetups. But guess what? He doesn't know. His girlfriend is working for a competitor. She's not yet his girlfriend. He's trying to woo her. So he's trying to show her, and look at the animation I just created for, right? It's flying, it can sleep, it can walk on the air and land and sea. It can go to space and come back. And then when we launch it, these guys are going to hit viral views. And he wants to wow her. So he goes into Canvas and downloads it. Or he goes into Adobe Creative, depending on whatever they're using, and downloads it and sends it to her. And she works for a competition. And so she sees it. She doesn't say anything. She says, wow, this is cool. And tomorrow is her board meeting when she's supposed to pitch an idea. And she sits down and she pitches that same idea. And their own team, because they're a competitor, release it 2 days before this other team releases it. I just want you to understand how the power of data, and when data is not managed and protected well, the consequences. Thank you. Insider threat. But look at how subtly it looks. He did it. It's his work. But he did it for his company. He wanted to use it to shine. Babe did not tell him. She went to and poached. And then they launched. And lo and behold, these guys launched 2 days before them. By the time they are seeing it, his brain has not even connected because he doesn't even know where the girl works. He just met her there. Probably she works for a consultant, so he knows where she works, but he doesn't know that that consulting firm is the creative and marketing media for this other firm that is a competition. He doesn't know, he just knows where she works. And he's like, wow. And then somebody will tell him, for this life, God, they give two people the same idea. Say, if God give you idea, go give another person the idea. Try. We just wasted time. And everybody will be getting bashing because the boss will be like, we took too much time on this project. We wasted time. Now look at it. They don't know what has happened. Now, how can IT help this kind of thing? Is when we create sensitivity labels, apply these labels to sensitive content, right? And then that way. So what would have happened in this instance? That organization would have applied a sensitive label to Canvas, right? And Canvas, which is on for managing Defender for Cloud Apps, will say any content that is for. So that project, first of all, will be classified as, so let us call that project Syphilis, right? That project will be classified as a sensitive project. And then we'll create a sensitivity label for that project, that any design that they did would have collected that, and then we'll probably prevent download until they're ready to go live. So these are instances, and I'm not telling you every story I tell you guys are incidents that I have handled in real life. I'm telling you of a company that lost a $1 billion worth project in this country, media creative department, because of this kind of thing. But a little bit twisted in their story, because I always like to just twist it so that you can't find the company. But it happened innocently. Somebody says A to B and B moves with it. So how do you do this kind of things in organizations? And just two things why I tell this story, for you to understand that data and security is not only relevant in banks or a company. No, even in your creative media, even in your retailing, your Eban or your ShopRite is very important. Even in small firms now that are coming up, quote and unquote, your hotel businesses. Why? Because everybody is building data through media. Imagine lots of organizations, utilizing our content creators, utilizing all these young guys to help them create content, and competitors will just be taking their whole idea, right? So it's very important that you understand that these features are available where you can infuse it. So Defender for Cloud Apps will allow you put sensitivity label. It will allow you enforce real-time enforcement where you can encrypt and restrict who has access, right? It can say if you want to download this on a non-company laptop, it will not open. Or it will say if you want to download this and send it. So this kind of thing, what do we do when they come to IT? Because we've set it up like this, we can do investigation and we can see that that boy downloaded this. So we can see all the people that downloaded it in the last maybe XYZ week, and they can bring them to start questioning them. Oh, from audit trail, we can see that this our material, you downloaded it, was, can you just give us a bit of reason why? And then the guy might be like, oh no, I needed to submit it to my manager. And then the system can be like, your manager already has access to this. Why did you download? So before you know it, the guy will spill up. I've seen cases where people innocently did things, and so they just told us, and that kind of made sense to why there was a breach. And it could be like, oh, I had to share with another friend to give me their view. And before you know it, the investigation would make sense where it has followed. So that's where visibility and control is, right? We can have visibility into who did what, why they did it, or what they did, or what time that they did it. Now with I don't know how many of you have seen Microsoft's M365 Copilot, Microsoft's own ChatGPT for organizations, right? Yeah. So while it's cool, that tool, Microsoft is improving on it daily, and it's becoming more and more interesting, especially for corporate where they don't want to use ChatGPT, but they want their staffs to be able to still use AI. We can apply sensitivity label. So M365 Copilot, those people who are attending the class, there's a class on Techstars for it, right? Imagine you're a legal department, and your boss gives you 3-4 contracts to review. Back in the days, do you know how long that would take you? And your company has M365 Copilot, but they don't have data labeling. So you copy the contract and you paste inside the company M365 Copilot. It would, because it's within your company tenant, that's fine. But it has trained your company LLM with it. Now, if I come tomorrow and I'm a not mind my business person, and I know that there's a contract, my husband is working for social company, and I know that that company is in competition with company A, and we are the legal firm of company A. I want to see what the terms and contract is for company, so I can go and divulge information to my husband. I can use Copilot. See, guys, sorry that I think weird. So, as somebody who has investigated fraud, right, and you'll be amazed if you don't think like this, you can't catch the thief. Because I'm sure someone will be like, why is she waiting? Cause how you go? They think this kind of thing. Yes, right. So I go into ChatGPT and I Copilot and I chat and I say, can I see the draft contract for company A? Because I know that we are the legal firm of company A. I'm not even in legal department though. I'm in IT or I'm in HR or somewhere. And I go, because my colleague pasted the contract in M365 for it to summarize and maybe identify the clauses that blah blah blah. It will post it for me because it's in our tenant. It will point where that contract is, unless I don't have access to the location. And then I can copy it, right? And share that information with my husband. That probably will give them an edge. There are so many ways. Sometimes it could even be innocently. The person just put it there. But somebody else now will have access to that information and use it maliciously. So what do? If we apply sensitivity labels to contracts, for example, so remember when we talked about custom sensitivity labels, right? So if we create custom sensitivity labels for contracts and assign the one for legal department, the moment that colleague copied and pasted in M365, it will tell you that this is the sensitive content and it will not use it to provide the information because it's already classified as sensitive. And if it does that, it would honor whatever protection. So beyond just putting sensitive label, it will ask you who should have access to this. So prior to that person copying it, that document would have been given access to maybe only the legal team. So when they copy and paste it there, right, it will bring the information and it will blur it and say sensitive. So when I do the same thing, while it will tell me that information exists, it won't show me what it is because I'm not listed among those who should have access to that content. So that's another way we can leverage on sensitive information type and Microsoft 365 Copilot to secure collaboration in an organization. The same thing with meetings, right? You can use meetings. So we're having a meeting here, right? And we have different. So if it was in a proper organization, right, with sensitive information type, we can also configure certain things. We can put chat restrictions. So we can say people cannot drop certain kind of words here. We can video mark this video. We can even encrypt the video and the audio, right? We can also use sensitivity labels to say who can record and who cannot record. So you see the way we have muted all of use video, right? We can use sensitivity labels and say that meetings that are organized for data security team, the videos should never be turned on. So imagine textilers tomorrow maybe conducting a training for children, and maybe we have a law that says that if you are doing stuff for children between this to this, do not show their face. And we don't want those children to mistakenly turn on their cameras, right? We can use sensitivity label to label a meeting that was set up for children to honor the policy that says the camera can never be turned off, so that no even admin person can mistakenly go and turn it. As long as that meeting has matched that sensitivity label, the cameras will never be enabled. These features were not even there like 2-3 years ago. It's just new things Microsoft are putting in, because imagine team meetings that are held, people are at home, the amount of data compromise that has happened because of certain technology expansions that are being given for people to be able to enjoy technology, but people are abusing it. The same thing for M365 containers. You can apply sensitivity level at site containers. So SharePoint sites, you can put sensitivity level there. OneDrive, you can put sensitivity labels also there. Teams, SharePoint groups, you can apply sensitivity labels to all these places. All right. I'm going to encryption because we can't even practice encryptions. We don't have laptops to help us do that for us to see. So how does now DLP work? So when you put labels does not protect you. Labels just help you say, this is the type of data that I have. So all we've been saying for the last 2 hours is just, and that's where the major work is, because you need to first of all know the type of data. So sensitivity information type, the pre-built one is there. The custom one you create based on your unique kind of data. But all of this is just to tell you the amount of data you have in your organization and where it is. The protection is now what you tell the label to do. You get it? Protection is now what you tell the label to do. You tell it to prevent the accidental data exposure. You tell it to say, oh, don't allow people to share this from here to here. You tell it to, notify people when they're about to do this, copy and paste. You tell it to watch behaviors. If the system is saying me that I just uploaded 100 files at the same time, and I am doing another one in the next 5 minutes, it's very obvious that it's not a human being doing it, it's a bot. Or in the next 2-3 minutes. So we call that adaptive protection. So we can configure policies and triggers, right? That says if you see a particular behavior happen in this way, then action this. So data protection, we identify that sensitivity label that we have put on the email, on the file, on the storage. Then it will now track how the users will interact it based on the policy. And then we'll now apply the policy that will say, okay, block, restrict, warn. Is that clear? So the first thing we do is we know our data, right? By doing sensitive information type classification, then we now protect our data by coming up with the policies, right, that we need to use, right, to protect this data. Now, the good thing with data protection is you can turn it on in audit mode. You can turn it on in audit mode, right? And then in that audit mode, you can tell it what to do. And then while it's doing it, you are using the dashboard to see where it is detecting. So that's one way. So for example, you can turn on a credit card sensitivity label and say, this credit card sensitivity label, right? I want to push it to the whole organization, but you will not tell it to block. You just say audit. So what will happen is that it will tell you all the places where it's seeing credit card and that they're using it, they're sending it to email, they're sending it to external email, they're downloading it to personal email, it will tell you. And then based on that, you can now step back and now create policies, and you can test those policies for a group of people before even extending it or enforcing it. So we always call it prepare your environment, plan, and deploy. Again, the good thing with policies is that we have templates again, and then we have custom. So you can use the templated policies or you can customize them to your own policy. Without spending much time here, the interactive adaptive policy, like I explained, is it would work on based on your behavior. It will look at the behavior of your system. For example, if it sees that we're a company in Nigeria, but Joyce IP is showing Pakistan, and it is uploading or downloading files. Based on that, meaning that we have set a configuration that says if people are uploading or downloading file outside our corporate region, it should trigger a block. I think so we can have that policy, and then that's what the system will now learn and action. Give me 1 minute, please. Sorry, I had to dislodge small madam. All right, so adaptive protection, we use it, like I explained, when you're trying to take your data protection to another level, where you're saying, I don't want people to spend too much time trying to read logs, read incidents. I want us to be able to be proactive and reactive. Sorry, proactive and rather than reactive, right? So we do this where you can create this policy. One scenario that I've seen organizations use this is, you know, when people resign, right? I don't know how you felt when you resign, but some people, when they resign, that period, that their 1 month or 2 months, depending on your level, they've zoned out. They don't really put in. Some people are like that, right? Some people also are working in very sensitive departments that once you resign, the expectation is that you start to relinquish the privileges that you have. So one use case we've done with this is we create adaptive where we say if the person has, because you know HR will trigger, now this is quite advanced, but I'm just saying it for you to understand how technology has evolved. In the HR solution, HR will trigger on the HR system that your last day is June 30th. Let's give an example. So in this policy, we will say anybody whose last day is XYZ, or greater than 30th, or is it greater than or less than 30 days, right? It should trigger an alert if the person is trying to upload document or if the person is trying to download. Because the truth is, many people, when they are leaving, they start to try to copy documents that they've prepared so they can use it in the next organization. Sometimes not malicious, right? You've developed a report. This your new role is saying that you're coming to coordinate people that you just want to use it, right? But it is for company A, it's not for the company B you're going to. So ideally, what you should do is sanitize it. But you're in a hurry, so you're just taking it like that. We can use insider threat to detect those kind of things, and it can trigger alerts. So I always say to people, when you resign from certain companies, there are certain companies you work with that are very detailed. So that's why you must know the kind of company you're working for, right? Two, there are certain companies you work with, when it's 30 days to the time, please try not to take or copy out things because your system will just be flagging like you're taking out company data. So we use this to also do that. So in the adaptive, you can either say if this person is logging in from a region that is outside our corporate region, flag this person as high risk. And then sitting on top of that, the action will be anybody who is high risk, block the person from being able to send or receive data. So that's how we can manage data protection. So that way, we're not sitting down every day and watching. So if my password was compromised and the hackers are in Russia or in Pakistan and they're logging in, meanwhile, I'm still in Nigeria or I'm still in Europe, right? The system will prevent us from being compromised as an organization because it will use the adaptive protection that is with DLP. That's what I'm trying to say in essence. And you can do the same thing also on Defender for Cloud. Why I like Defender for Cloud, I'm going to try and see if our next class before I do this. I have one nice project on this is because of the use of so many cloud services now. So there's a high demand for this now. Lots of organizations are asking questions after their third party risk assessment is this data that we are putting inside this cloud, what is happening to it? How can we ensure that our users are not going to download it? So one of the benefits of SSO that we did was that if you integrate SSO to a third-party app, right, then you can force your users not to open it on non-corporate. Now, understand, let me paint a picture. You get an app, Canva, it's open on the internet. If you get your personal device, you can open Canva there. Now you're working for company A who gave you Canva full license. You want to also use that Canva license, right, to do your LinkedIn post flyers, which is not bad because on Canva you can create different projects, right? So you can have your company project where it is, and then you can have a project sitting there. And you know that if you have the licensed version on Canva, you can see much more content than if you have the free one. So you want to do that. But on company laptop, right, there's restriction. So what do? You open it on your personal. An organization has to ask themselves, if I allow you open it on your personal, right? What happens if your personal laptop is compromised? So part of what SSO does is that when we integrate SSO to those kind of apps, first of all, you'll not be able to log in without your company email and company MFA. And that way we can also force it to be used on only company device. Now, when you do that on only company device, it also now helps us to say that this data that is inside here, don't do this. So that your personal data, it won't flag. We can also exclude where we don't enforce company policies on your own personal creatives. However, right, you will not be able to access it on your personal device. So we've been able to see use cases where company doesn't want to be too rigid. You can use their app, right? But everything must be done on their own system, on their own network, on their own laptop. Especially in this world where we allow people work from anywhere. So people are working from their toilets, some people are working from their vacation rooms, right? Some people are in their hotel rooms on vacation. So it's okay, right, to do that. But we need to be able to ensure that we can protect data. So that's why I like Defender for Cloud Apps. So Defender for Cloud Apps is taking away DLP from, because the way we know DLP before was Exchange, Office 365, OneDrive, SharePoint, all those things, right? Now, an organization that's not their concern. Maybe they're not yet ready. They feel it's too deep, but they are so heavily on cloud apps. They use Canvas, they use Adobe Creatives, they use Miro, they use Anaplan. Just go and look for a list. You see lots of third-party apps. Even their HR solution is a third-party app. And you can see how much sensitive information HR. So you can have a company that is using Seamless HR or using HR Flex. These are all third-party cloud HR solutions, and you and I know that HR platforms keep sensitive information. So if you are a HR person here, or you have an HR person as a friend, you talk to them to say, I know we're using HR cloud, so we've dropped the cost of hosting HR solution in our data center. Good. But what's happening to the data? Does it mean that Sukomi can sit in her room, and download people's pay slips on her personal laptop because she logged into the HR solution with her personal laptop, right? And people's pay slip can be on her laptop. Executive pay slip can be on her laptop. Our payroll can be on her laptop. God forbid her laptop gets stolen because she's taking a bus from bus point 1 to point 2, right? Or she misplaces her laptop, right? People now have access to her data. Our data is not accessed. So you need to see how to now use Defender for Cloud Apps to enforce DLP, to inspect content, to now even automate remediation, to guide governance, and then we continue to do continuous monitoring. We can do that with Defender for Cloud Apps for third-party apps like that. So somebody has asked, before I go on the question, is that clear? Does that look like a typical scenario we would see in our organizations for those who are already working, right? Awesome. Thank you. So someone just gave us a scenario. He said, he or she said, I know somebody who copied all the projects on a he worked on personally. So this person worked on a project while he was at company A, right? So he was leaving 20 days to leaving. He moved all those projects, to his hard drive. Good. Guess what? He opens the one up after he has left the company, and boom, they're all encrypted. That's it. That company is my friend. That's how it should be done, right? So encryption will follow. So what happens is that all the projects this person worked on were classified as sensitive, and sitting on top of it was encryption. Now, this is not to say that, so are you saying that the knowledge is in your head? So what you should have just done is remove company information. So if you see all my assignments, right, I'm creating funny names. I'm saying Oringo, but these are life use cases that I'm doing. I'm not calling the name of the company. I'm not calling the name of the issues that we're handling, right? I'm not even telling you the sector, the industry. I'm just saying I'm now creating my own fictitious. So that's what that person should have done. He wants to use that same concept. That's fine. But he needs to take away company detail from that. And many people do, we call it sanitized. Say, give me a sanitized version. So you should have sanitized those information. But guess what? He wants to take company work, and that's intellectual property because you did it while you were on company A, and as long as you did that project on company A, is their information. But if you want to take the foundation, the concept, right, so that you can use it because maybe you're a creative, maybe there was this kind of logic that you used to make a spiral ball move from circle to square. that's fine. So you want to take what that logic is, that's fine. But to say you want to take that image, that's it, then that's theft, that's intellectual property. So yeah, I like that company. They have, premeditated that people can do those things. So what they have done is, one, created sensitive information type, applied it to things like that project, right? Wherever that project was stored, they applied it. And they also used encryption. So the moment the person left the organization system, that data was useless. I did this kind of projects a lot in the bank. Like your laptop, take it to, so you have people that their laptops will spoil, maybe because they shared it with their children, so their children poured water or something, and they didn't want to come to IT because we'll ask you questions, right? So they'll take the laptop to Ikeja, then Nigeria, and it won't do anything. And some of these people were my friends, so they would now call me on the phone and say, Joy, what's up? What's happening? My laptop is not working. You will have some senior executives, like they'll call you and be raking, my laptop, I have these young people that work for me and they can't do anything. As soon as they call my boss will come and start and say, boss, they can't do nothing. They should bring it here. Unless we decrypt it, they cannot do nothing. That data is, so they will now have to come and then we'll now say, oh, what happened? We'll now find out that, okay, water poured or whatever. Some of them will even go on Friday. They went to club, left their laptop on top of where they're eating chicken and fish, and then water now poured on it. And so they were thinking that they could just quickly get it, change the keyboard and everything. But the data, when they're trying to swap the hard drive, right? When they put back the hard drive on another thing, it's not working. And yes, it will not work because we've encrypted the hard drive. Once you remove a hard drive and slave it from an encrypted disk, based on encryption solutions differ, right? I had somebody make a bet on me on a particular encryption solution we're using. I said, if you change it, I would, then we're having some office, like, I'll buy you lunch for the whole of the week. He tried all he could, and I said, no, we only use the decryption key. It's not possible. So yes, I like that kind of use case. It happens. There are scenarios where you have people do that, and some organizations have been proactive. Another good tool that is in DLP is that you can do analytics. This is still in preview mode, but what's analytics? It can tell you that you have some oversharing scenario. What's an oversharing scenario? Imagine a SharePoint site that has been mistakenly set up to share with everyone, right? What does that mean? It means that everybody in the organization has access. Now, are there some scenarios that you will need everyone to have access? Yes. But then, as a data protection officer, you want to make sure that it is the right location that everybody has, especially now that we're introducing AI. So Microsoft 365, if I just stay in it and I chat in an organization, give me the payroll of this organization, right? It's going to go and check everywhere that information is. So if HR has payroll kept in repositories that have access to everyone, ChatGPT will respond back to me. Copilot will respond back to me. Now, I'm not telling you to go to your office now, tomorrow, Monday, and go to your Copilot and go and tell me payroll of everybody. It will show in the audit logo. Don't go and look for problem for yourself. Please, don't go and say, they taught me over the weekend. I wanted to test it. There we have audit log. It will show we have prompts in the DSPA, the data security posture management for AI. We show your prompts, right? So please, but it's possible, right? That's what AI has brought. AI has made life easy. So when those curiosity comes in your head, you can do it. I remember I've worked for an organization where we wanted to revolt against salary. So we had some like, we're school aluta. Well, I will exempt myself a bit, sha. But some school are Luther in office. So what did we do? Then it was whack. I don't know. I'm not old school, but I'm old school in tech. So then if you wanted to connect to somebody's system, if the organization did not protect SMB file sharing, right? All you needed to do is from your laptop, if you do whack / put the computer name of the person's laptop, right? And put another slash, right? $sign. It will show you all the files that are shared in that person's laptop. Yes. But now I don't expect any company to be allowing SMB share because that's one of the fastest way for viruses. So I want to believe everybody back in the day, technology was just starting. So we did it to HR system. And from there we got access to payroll file and then we saw everybody. So the Aluta now started where, so the revolt was new people coming in had a baseline, and that their baseline was already matching some people who had stayed in the company for like 10 years, what was supposedly a salary increase. So the challenge was if you have restructured the company and now you now have a baseline as X Naira, don't you think you should now restructure what each level is? Because somebody is coming in as baseline and the person is maybe 20K different from me who just got a promotion maybe 2 years ago and I'm at a level that it took me 2 years to get. But somebody just comes in and by virtue of new entry gets this. So it was very questionable. Imagine a town hall meeting and you just straight on management. Like they were shocked, like, where did we get our data from? But we didn't like call out people's name, what they were earning, but we came up with very nice statistics and reporting, why we did that. Don't do those kind of things, please. It was in the early days when data security and all of this was not a big deal. So some of us were very revolutionary. So, but my point is, people can use AI. People can be that revolutionary in organizations now that there's AI. So you want to make sure from data security perspective that you've put the right guardrails. And so the DLP analytics will help you tell you, even when you don't know that, oh, this SharePoint site, has the tendency for oversharing. And it will tell you why it's saying that. So it's because maybe it has sensitive data and it is shared with that SharePoint site has a access permission as everyone, those kind of things. And then it will even provide recommendations on what you should do, right? So this thing in preview, but it's a good way to also help us because we can't know everything. So you see your dashboard like something like this, and then you can look at it. Okay, I want to quickly go into the real thing. Again, DLP helps us for removable drives. So in Microsoft, how Microsoft manages your DLP, your USB, what you people are common sense with, what you call your USB drives, right? So again, remember that that's data, right? So people can plug USB drives. Some organizations by default have blocked USB drives. So you can see that in this scenario, Mupa told us like the organization still allowed USB drive maybe for this person, but they encrypted the data. So some organizations can even block USB drive by default for certain people in the organizations, and you use DLP to do that, where you can block or you can audit or restrict access. Again, this is one of the functions of DLP that we can do. We can also infuse browser extensions, right, on the browser. So some of you, if you look at your company laptop browser, if you click and at the top right and go to extension, you will see an extension called the Microsoft Purview browser extension. If your organization has that extension on your laptop, just know ye today that your organization has visibility into all the sites that you go to. Thank you. If you go to your company laptop and you click at the top right and you go to extension and you see this extension called Microsoft Purview browser extension. Of course, there are other type of extensions that can do this. So you have not to, but if you go to extension and you see an extension that you don't know, just Google it. Most organizations, that's how they track the websites that you go to. Right. Thank you very much. So that's how we can enforce certain things, block you from copying. So we can use that to block, monitor activities and prevent you from uploading files to cloud services, prevent you from doing things like print screen, where you print screen, prevent you from copying data, copy and paste, right click paste, prevent you from copying to network shares because of that extension. So currently it is on Edge, is on Chrome, and is on Firefox. Yeah. So many of you just, enjoy your new company laptop and you don't know some of the things that we have there that helps us. It helps us keep the organization safe. But hey, it tells us what you're doing. So just-in-time protection is, for example, some organizations will say, I remember again, this one is new too, but I've seen use cases back in the days. There used to be this CBN regulation. So the guys would come. I don't know how old or young my audience is, but I don't know if you remember floppy disk. We used to call it floppy disk. It used to be round, like, some movies too used to be those days. So those round CD plates that you had, we call them floppy. So they had those ones, and then we had the floppy disks for laptops. Sorry, for desktops. So back in the day, CBN would say that there are certain compliance reports you have to send them in floppy disks or those CD plates, right? So people who didn't have access to floppy disks or USB drives would request for. So things like this now configure just in time. What it means is that if organizations have this and peradventure a CBSC has that kind of old policy, right? And they need to upload something to USB. What they will need to do is to use the just in time and make a request, and then IT will grant them that request for that XYZ period. And when they are done, right, that access, so they can say they want it for 2 hours, 3 hours. When I used to use McAfee, we used to be able to do that for organizations where somebody would make a request and say, and then they'll call service desk, and service desk will give them a code, and then the thing will release their system for maybe 2 hours or 3 hours. And once it does that, they'll be able to move files into USB or those disks, and then after 2 hours, the thing automatically just lock them back. IT doesn't have to do anything. It used to be very cool. It was one of the things I used to shine in my days too, made life easy. Service desk, easy call. IT backend was happy. Service desk felt more relevant because now they had to do more kind of technical things rather than just take call and say, oh, I want USB, they'll route your ticket to the backend. So it was how we built level one to be more engaging and show more value, while IT offloaded some work that we felt level one could handle, and we spend more time on engineering. So this kind of initiatives, business management always likes it. Monitoring, alerting, yeah, we use the Defender XDR and Purview. Purview gives us some good level of monitoring, but you can also push your logs to Microsoft Sentinel, right? The Microsoft Defender alert system that can allow you see and do some bit of trigger monitoring and trial. So you can say this alert started from here, and this is what we're seeing now. So you can say, oh, we can see that Joy can no more send files. Why can Joy no more send files? And we can click on that action that is blocking, and it can tell us Joy cannot send file because at 2 a.m. we saw a login outside a corporate region, and so her risk level moved from low to high. And so because she was high as at 2 o'clock, we triggered an automated response of block. But now Joy, the real Joy who wants to work, is trying to send a file at 4 o'clock. Are you seeing it? And I can't send a file, and I'm breaking because maybe that file, the boss wants it, and I'm saying, I can't send a file, and I had access to send, and they're like, yeah, you can't send a file because they're like, no, I didn't do it. In fact, I'm not logged into my system. What are people saying? IT can do that investigation and say, okay, yeah, you're right. You probably haven't, but we could see that there was a login trigger for your account here. And so that's why it blocked you, and then we can now say, okay, force you to reset your password and blah, blah, blah. But those are ways that we can now do some more response reactions to user queries rather than before where everybody's in the dark and everybody's fighting each other. You can do lots of investigations. So that's why I said don't use some of the scenarios I've painted here because you just want to see if it works. Rather do it in your demo because in your organization it will trigger and you have to start explaining to them that I learned something over the weekend, I'm testing it. So lots of alerts that can tell prompts and actions that you've taken on the dashboard. All right, in the absence of any question, I would log into Purview for you to see how it looks. Any question? I know towards the end I started rushing, but I was cautious of time. But do we have any questions? Okay, let me log into Purview and shows. Let me know when you can see my screen, please. So you know how I told you that portal.azure.com is how you log into Entra, and then admin.microsoft.com is how you log into the M365 admin. So purview.microsoft.com is how you log into Purview. Again, you need the right rule. So if you log in now and you can't see anything, it will tell you that you don't have the right rules, and your role can now be elevated for you to be able to see it. So when you come in, this typically the different solutions. So you can see them like this, or you come here, home solutions, and you can see all the Microsoft solutions that provide the service that we've just gone through. Are you seeing it? So we've talked about insider risk, remember, we talked about DSPMI, we talked about data loss prevention, we talked about life cycle, I think we talked about communications manager. So there's a whole lot. So we'll start with information protection, and This is the information needed to be set up tab. Okay, so let me see what permission I don't have, and then I can give myself. Saying I don't have it, that's strange. Thought I had global permission. Sorry. Okay, I don't know what that means, but sorry. Let's just go ahead. All right. So we can see, so let's come to sensitivity labels. We talked about, sorry, that's not where I wanted to start from. Sensitive information type is where I wanted to start from. Yeah, so you can see that 326, I've highlighted just follow my mouse, 326 so far. Microsoft keeps updating. So Microsoft has about 326 sensitive information types. You can see, and it will tell you the platform where this sensitive information type can be used. Is this thing visible? Like, is it readable? Like, can you see? Is it clear?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you can see different types of sensitivity types, right? You can see bank account numbers. Let's search credit card. Sadly, they don't have many things from Nigeria. It's so sad, sha. So you can see credit card number, and it's telling you that this sensitive information type will work across all platforms. So you can even filter. You can filter per platform. I can say I want to see the ones that can work for Office 365. I'm not sure. Let me just reset them. Yeah. We have we looked at credit card. Let's see. They don't have, very sad though, they don't have, let's see, driver's license. Yeah. They don't have many Nigerian things. See now, Indonesia driver's license, they don't have our own as well. I know we also have some Kenyan people here. Let's see, do they have anything on Kenya? Nothing. They have anything on Nigeria? Nothing. So most of these things you have to now create your own custom. Sorry, don't mind them. I don't get any of our things. So you have to maybe create your own. So here you can click create information type, right? So when you click create, sorry, let me pass this so it will be easy. So you can say you want to create an information type and you can call it anything. So we can say now somebody is going to say, how am I going to be able to know how all the Nigerian driver's license in the world? Do I have somebody who just thought of that question? And it's okay. It's not a stupid question, right? You might not know it, so don't feel like let me not go and ask my questions. So yes, how can this machine know? How does it know the driver's license of everybody? It doesn't know. It's going to. So those are what we call structured patterns. It doesn't know. It's going to work with pattern. So you can see it here. That's why it's asking you create the pattern. Right, so simple, just go to Google. So in my assignment, I'll give you something like this and say, you know, identify a sensitive information type. So what you just do is, for example, we can go to Google and say, or even your ChatGPT, you can use it and say, give me the expression for Nigerian driver's license. That's not what I'm asking for. Yeah. Sorry, I wanted to say regular, not registration. Yeah. Oh, we have somebody who has written an article on it. That's good. So can you guys see my screen? I'm navigating away from. Are you there?
Yes, we're here. We can see the
Yeah.
red.
So just use the internet. So somebody has written an article, makes life easy. So she has an expression. These things are logic. So there's a logic behind your credit card. There's a logic behind the number that you are giving in your driver's license. There's a logic behind your NIN number. It's not just, they don't just sit down and somebody just say, I bet today maybe give 10 people will go register 615 1082. No. There's a logic. There's a logic behind the numbering. So I don't want to kill myself. The internet is there. Somebody who has done the research. This is the logic, right? So you could read up. Maybe she would tell us if she had issues with, oh God, what is article people? If they catch you that you don't have this thing too. So you can see she's this is another one for phone number. She has this person, it's like she writes around reg expressions. So that's good. So okay, this one is Nigerian phone number. So you can see that even your phone number has a logic. They don't just create those numbers because they like sequencing, right? There's a logic behind the numbers. So her logic is for phone numbers. I was looking for driver's license, not phone number. I used to find that thing with. There used to be one article, one guy writes like this. Normally, when you just use Google, that guy's article will come. Nigeria driver's license. All one come is phone number. I don't know. Okay, I'll just switch it to phone number then. I'll just use it for you to understand. I'll just copy it like that for you to understand the expression. Let's not waste time on the internet. But you get what I'm saying? There's a pattern for every. These things are structured pattern. Your phone number is a structured pattern. It will have zero, a first zero, right? So we all know. Now I've lost track, but when phone numbers came up, we knew that 0803 was MTN, right? And 0809 was then it was Easy Salat, and then 002 was way back it used to be Easy Airtel. I think it was even there's something before Airtel, Abby. Yeah, so that's what tells you that it's a structured pattern. So the number and sequence, and then your phone number cannot be more than 11. I seen it for Nigeria. Another country is another one like that. So that expression that helps you generate that is what you will use here. So what you're going to tell Puff is that anywhere it sees it. So now it's asking that is this what's the level? How confident are you about this pattern? Right? So you will say, yes, this is the pattern. I'm very confident that it's going to be a 10 digit, it's going to be this, or you say not. So it's going to ask you what way do you want to create it. Is it through a regular expression, or do you want to use a keyword list, or you want to keyword dictionary function? So these are 4 types of elements you can use to create your pattern. So for things like phone number and this, so I can say phone number. I don't know if that expression was for a particular network or for all. I'll just say for all. And then C is asking for the expression pattern, and you just put this, right? And you can see it has detected there is a screen match. Do you want any validators? I don't want. I trust. I confident that that's how it matches. Character proximity. What does this mean? I'm going to stop here. I want to be sure people are understanding me because I know I've entered technical now, so I don't sound gibberish. I can't see the chat, so audio response would be better. I'm sharing my full
We are
screen.
following now.
Pardon?
We are following up.
Okay, yeah. So at that point, it will ask you. So here it's asking, what does character proximity? Remember, you are creating your own now. Character proximity means that it's saying, if I see this thing, are you expecting it to be within 300 characters of the document or wherever I see it? Or are you expecting it to be beginning or end? So in this instance, anywhere, right? Anywhere. There's no, it's not anywhere you see this sequence of number, then that document should be classified with this label. And it's not asking that do you have any supporting blah blah blah. Do you want to do any additional checks? So additional checks can be things like if it starts with A, or if it starts with, it all depends on whatever you're trying to detect or whatever this pattern is. But the point is that it's giving you that option where you can be flexible or make it more strict, and then you can create, right? So we have one pattern here, right? You can have multiple patterns for a sensitive information typo, right? You can have different patterns, but we just have one pattern that we want to use. And we're saying that match items will contain the fewest false positives. So meaning that you are very sure that this pattern, anywhere it is seen, you are very sure that that pattern is confident, meaning that you don't expect false positive. It means that any document that matches this, then that document really has that sensitive information type. So I can edit it to Nigerian phone numbers. What happened? I can always come back here and edit it. I don't know why my system is timing out and it's so slow. So guys, did you get that? So we have, it's still loading here. So why is loading? Let me be talking. I don't know. So let's look for, we just created, that isn't Domi just created it now. Something is fishy with my, sorry. Let me see if it's a ticket. Nigerian phone number. One pattern, highly confident, primary element, regular expression. Done. And then document, create, next. String up on some invalid regular expression, the identifier of invalid phone number. Invalid regular expression processor. Sorry, it doesn't like that expression. Okay, so let me look for another one. Yeah. I don't know, it's not taking. I had to remove the last closing parenthesis, change the hyphen to a regular keyboard dash. It worked. Okay, so you see, not be me. Even there's people they complain the expression no work. Okay, I was almost feeling like I don't know how to copy and paste. Remove the open and close, and then what else did she say she removed? I change the hyphen to regular keyboard dash. Where's the hyphen? Okay, I don't know what this expression is not working. I wish. Let me just Google one more. I would have loved you guys to see this. I thought I had one. Let me see. Let me just open ChatGPT and make life easy for us. Let's use ChatGPT. I know. All right, let's use this. Why is it saying created and then it's not creating it? Create the pattern, blah blah blah, and primary element, regular expression, license, problem, is create that energy.
Ma, there's a typo error here.
No, because it's a demo, so don't worry. I know.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So let's see if it has created this one. It should change to 327 because we had 3. Yeah, so you can see it's there. So let's say license, driver's license. Yep, that's it here. So you can see it's driver's license. It's not matching anything because of course this database doesn't have any of Nigerian content, right? Yeah, but you can see I've created it. It's telling you this. I don't have any driver's license. This is a demo tenant. But that's just how you can create sensitive information type. So what you can do is you can open a Microsoft Word, copy a driver's license number, paste it there, save that Microsoft Word document in your SharePoint or your OneDrive, and then create this. I'm saying on the Textiles tenants we've given you, we gave you email and there's OneDrive, so you save it there or save it on your email, and then create a sensitive information type and then watch it match. So if we took credit card, I just wanted to show something here again, and we clicked on it, for example, it will show us, okay, this one doesn't have anyone matching. So that brings me to Activity Explorer, but we'll come back there where you would see if things are matching. But guys, this is how you create sensitive information type. Again, in creating the sensitive information type, you can choose different. If you don't have to necessarily use um um don't have to necessarily use regular expression, but it's just that regular expressions work more effectively than any other pattern. So you can use a keyword, you can use a key dictionary, so you can say account number. Listen, you can use the word account number, or you can upload a dictionary word. So what does this mean? If you're working in an organization that is a knowledge-based organization, meaning that your organization has a dictionary file, meaning that you guys have like a glossary and where you have the meaning of something. So maybe you say CSP equals to conditional, sensitive, palliative, something like that. You have a list. You can click here and upload your dictionary word, and then probably will say anywhere matches those dictionary word, or you can use exact words. So here, what I want, if it says account number, I can come and say if it sees it as account, are you seeing number, whether small letter, I can say accounts, whatever those keywords are, I can use it. Now, the challenge with keywords, like we said, is somebody can just be chatting somebody and just use, send me your account number, right? So you also want to be careful of the use cases where you are using dictionary words, but those 4 options exist for you to use it. We also have the fingerprint based. This is the one where you use the templated scenario, right? Where you will come and you will upload, are you seeing it? You upload the file of the form, and so anywhere it sees that template being used to create a content, it would also match it as a sensitive information type. So this is how you create sensitivity label. So what do you do with this label? How do you know that it's matching things? That's where you come to explorers. So we look at Activity Explorer. I don't know if there's so much on this database. Let me remove it. Let me see. It's a very empty database, so I don't know. I don't know if it has anything. Do I have a server I can use? I would love you guys to see how it actually detects in an environment using those sensitive information type. Um, okay, yeah. Okay, so in this one, you can see, so for Content Explorer, you can see here, it has said sensitive information type. It has taken different sensitive information type based off the Microsoft ones, right? And you can see it, for example, credit card number, right? You can see 64 credit card numbers across this. So it's telling you that inside Exchange, which is your email, you can see 16. Inside OneDrive, you can see 39. SharePoint, are you seeing it? In Teams, there's no usage of credit card. In Copilot, no usage. Right. So as an organization, you can through this know that your people Content Explorer role. So you can see I don't have these roles. So I need to add myself to these roles so I can see the breakdown. But here it just tells you. So when you come to Content Explorer, you can break down the different sensitive information type, right, that Microsoft has already put. So first of all, as an organization, even if I don't have sensitive information type, but I want to know if based on global standard, right, do we have data that is classified? So you can see it here. So the first thing I always tell people is glance through the Microsoft sensitive information type and find out if any of their SITs match with what you do in your organization, and then come and see where that data currently exists in your organization, and then you can take it up from there to now create your own custom. Is that clear? So you can see things like tax ID, different other countries, right? You can see it's matching. This is a pure demo. Passport numbers, our passport numbers too are regular. They come with sequence. You can even see in this instance, see the trainable classifiers, right? So here they've created trainable classifiers for finance, HR, budget, and you can see that they can tell you where these classifiers are. So they have a finance classifier that they can see around OneDrive and SharePoint. So what does this tell you? So if you come here and click SharePoint, you will see the SharePoint site that is referring to HR, the same thing. So trainable classifiers, they've come here. Let's look at the trainable classifiers that were set up. So in this instance, again, Microsoft has built in about 114 built-in trainable classifiers that you can use. So they have a template for budget, they have a template for bank statements. So if you're working in a audit firm, right, and you guys have, I remember one of my first corporate job was an audit financial firm, and those audit reports are very sensitive. So those kind of things, you can come here and reuse this one, right, and see what conditions are in this classifier that you want to replicate in your own as an organization, and so that you can now create your own trainable classifier that it can match your exact. But Microsoft already has its own. You can start from what they have and see where it's matching in your organization, and at least have an idea that you guys have sensitive information type that people are already using. You can see non-disclosure agreements, right? Where you have non-disclosure agreements, these are also sensitive information type. Memorandum of understanding, right? People have signed MOUs for businesses, right? You want to make sure that these kind of documents are confidential, so you want to know where they are. We have different profanity words, right, for different countries and different languages. These are all Microsoft's own default. You can use it to um, also trade. So you see targeted harassment, right? Use of these words, right? So for example, our telcos, one would expect that our telcos will have trainable classifiers that can, tag, pick out these words. I'm sure this is what the likes of TikTok them are doing, whatever solution they use. I'm not saying they're using Povi, but they have trainable classifiers. So that's why when you use things like, Pi, of course, Pi is our own, but whatever Pi means, it's the English word for Pi. Imagine using it so in TikTok Live, it will detect you, in Instagram, it will detect you, and then you get shadow banned and you get prevented because that classifier can pick those, those words, those profanity words being used that trigger threats, harassment, and those kind of things. Is this clear, guys? So this is how you play around here. You create your sensitivity labels. Now, once you have your label, the next thing you want to do is to sorry, we've looked at the sensitivity information type. So the next thing is to create the sensitivity label, right? Now, these are the ways we create the label. You can have any, depending on your organization, what you have planned, right? So you can come and say that anything that is critical, like I said, is highly confidential. You can even have confidential, you can have labels per department. So in this instance, confidential, but for finance department, are you seeing? You can have confidential HR, you can have confidential on all staff, right? And you can have general public personnel. So these labels, you can come here. This is how you create a label. Call it, you can have confidential textiles. Display name is how do I want people to see the label on their system. So the name here is how do I want to name the policy on Purview, but display, how do I want people to see it? So I can say I want them to see it as confidential security textile, let's just say, right? And the label priority, it should be the highest priority for them, for security students in tech stylers. And then so it's not asking me that where do I want these labels to be applied, right? Do I want them to apply in files that are in M365, in Fabric, in Power BI? So imagine, like I said, if I were to give us the project I had planned for data, it would be like, the guys in Power BI, for example, now they're creating Power BI dashboards and all of that. So we could give a scenario and say that data has been exported for a data analyst, right, to go and analyze the sales that happened in the last 6 months, right, or to analyze the JAM student results in the African region or something, or in Nigeria, and then that data has been exported. However, that data, because of the content of the data, the Nigerian Data Protection Act flags that data as highly confidential. You are the data engineer that has been assigned to work with the data analyst, right? And so you have to come up with sensitivity labels and sensitive information type to ensure that that data is not shared with anybody outside the organization. You see that kind of scenario. So the moment I've said Power BI this, you know that in this kind of instance, you have to select these. They don't want to share to anybody, that email, anybody outside the organization. So it might not necessarily mean, or you might say, oh, maybe they will have a meeting and share to somebody when they are doing the presentation. So you select these whole labels, right? And then you will now come here and say next. And then this is protection. What do you want to do, right? Part of the requirement could be that the label can be seen by only people that it has been, the file can be seen by only people that it can, be allowed. Now, in this instance, we're asking this label that we want to use. We haven't even gone to the DLP policy. This is about the label that we are creating. We're saying who can access this label. So we said that this label should be used in all this platform. And we're saying that this label should be seen by and controlled by who, right? We're saying that this label you can apply content marking to using the label, and you can protect Teams meeting and chat. No, we don't have a license for Teams. That's why I can't check this box, right? So on my own tenant, your tenant I think has, right? So at this point, who access control, assign permissions now, or let users decide. So what is this part saying? This part saying that when this label is used, the person that is applying this label, is that the person that also tells the label who can do what with this label, or is it automatic? So again, in an organization, you might want to create label where you're saying, I still want the users to be flexible. So you know how when you want to share a OneDrive file, or let me use Google since most of you use it, you can say somebody should view, and then you can say another person should edit, but you share to 2 different people at the same time. From the sharing, you will see view, and you will see, I think there's edit, right? So 2 people access to a file, but with different permissions, right? So it's the same thing in label. You can say you want to leave it that people can, on their own, when they're applying that label, they can see what will happen. Or this label by default will always carry this permission. That's what they say. So let users assign permission when they apply the label, or anytime this label is applied, this is the permission It again is based on what your organization wants. If your organization wants to give people that flexibility, that's fine. If your organization is saying that this particular label is sensitive, so we don't want option, once this label is applied, this should happen. Give me 5 minutes, please. Thank you. User access to content expire. Can the content expire or can it be forever? Again, some of you, if you see that when you are sharing those your Google files, it tell you, can you keep this content or is it forever? The good thing about this is because of oversharing. So if you're sharing maybe a document with a partner company and you are allowed to share it with a partner company, but you want after this period that access should expire based on the label, you can say never. User access to content should never expire or it should expire. All of this is based on the use case that you sit down during the discussion with the client to determine, and whatever the permission is, you create it. And you're saying I must assign one permission, so let me just create or assign to group. And then who should you assign this? So let me assign this to just one person. So you can assign this label to all staff, you can assign it to a particular department, whatever. And then this is where content marking, we can say, do we want anytime we use this label to do content marking? So you know what content marking is, where it's either right from down to up or right across. Again, it depends on what the organization wants. Here it's asking that you want auto labeling, meaning that I'm not going to wait for people to manually select it. As soon as that sensitive information type is detected that I am going to tie to this label, then it will automatically label it. Again, it's based on your use case. Then what type of protection do I want to put, right? External sharing, again, it depends on what your organization wants, that you want the protection, and that's it. You've created a sensitivity label. So you create a sensitive information type, or you use the Microsoft one, then you create a sensitive label. Now you can create a label and not publish it yet, right? Because you want to review it, or maybe you want your boss to review it. Because once you publish it, it will start to push itself. So that's another one there for sensitivity label. What else do I want to show here? So that's it. And then we now come to policies, right? So we have policies now where you publish, right, that label. So I can say I want to publish, it will ask me which label do I want to use, right? And I will come and say I want to use that. Where's that one that I just created now? What did I even call it again? Textile or something, Abby. Yeah, that's it. Look at it down there. So I say I want to publish this, right? And it will ask me who do I want to give, add and remove admin units. Who am I publishing to all users, right? And then what do I want to do? Do I want them to provide justification if they want to change the labeling, or do I want them to this label to be applied to all emails, Power BI content? So the scenario I gave now, you will select Power BI because we're referring to Power BI content, and then apply the label. Do I want this label to be applied now, or do I want it to apply the real label? And I will select this, and that's it. And then I'll call my policy something. So I'll do Power BI confidential policy, whatever we agreed this policy was. And that's it. I have published the policy. So you identify a sensitivity label. So is either you use an existing sensitivity label to create your, is either use an existing sensitivity information type to create your sensitivity label, or you create a custom sensitivity information type and then create your sensitivity label. Then you publish with a policy that you tell it what to do, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, so this is how you play around DLP in an organization, and you can use this. So you can see it here, Power Information type. I've created it, the data I created at the time, and then this label can now go crawl in the organization, and we can begin to see it being used and applied to the people that we wanted to apply. So this is how we use information protection in the organization to manage data across different environments. On that note, we've done 3 hours. I will so Omofeba, you're very happy that you saw Canada's driver's license number. Yes, thank you for yes, it was Zane. Thank you. V-Mobile Zane. Yeah. I'm just happy that Omofeba said I can see Canada So you have abandoned us Nigerians and identified with your Canada identity. And so it's good. That's good. But basically that's how we do data security, right? Where's our data? We want to know our data, and the only way we can know our data is that we use sensitive information types to crawl around, where our data is, whether it's M365, SharePoint, OneDrive, wherever it is, and then it will use the Content Explorer to tell us where it is, or we can create our own sensitive information type because of the kind of data we have. Microsoft has not classified it for us, right? And we can use either regular expressions or use keywords to create these sensitive information types, and then it will now go into our environment and crawl, and we can see where it is. Then we can now create the label where we say this sensitive information type, this is how I want to label it, and then this is the policy I want, which is block, restrict, encrypt, and all of that. All right. Thank you very much for giving us 3 hours of your time. We'll come back here next week where we look at AI, how we do this same thing when we are using artificial intelligence. And we'll now show you also how beyond just M365, if you are doing ChatGPT and the rest in your organization, remember I've told you that with Microsoft Purview, once we push out Microsoft Purview extension to your browser, we can see the sites that you visit, right? So we don't see what you are doing on those sites, but we know you are visiting those sites so that people don't misquote me. So we can, when you put on your browser ChatGPT, it will monitor it and say, okay, people in the organization are using ChatGPT. So that way we can also now begin to do certain kind of monitoring around type of prompts and all of that so that we can ensure compliance. So we'll look at that in AI security next week. Thank you very much for always staying consistent. I know we had a few drops, by the time we extended, but that's it. Any questions? I will stop the recording now. Yes, please ask your questions.
Yes, please. So I was trying to work